Let's get right into it. You wake up. It's your bedroom, your ceiling, your alarm clock yelling at you. But when you look in the mirror, the face staring back isn't yours. The panic starts to set in, but then something even weirder happens. You know this stranger's name. You know their favorite breakfast. You remember their 8th birthday party, the feel of the cheap plastic party hat, the taste of the waxy frosting on the cake. The memories in your head belong to a person you've never met, but they feel as real as your own. So what's going on? Is your brain hacked? Are you losing your mind? Or is it possible that memory isn't the neat little filing cabinet we think it is? It turns out science has some truly unsettling answers. Have you ever heard someone say they have a gut feeling? We use that phrase all the time, a casual little metaphor for intuition. But what if it wasn't a metaphor at all? What if your gut could remember? This sounds like the plot of a low-budget horror movie, but it's a phenomenon that surgeons and psychologists have been quietly documenting for decades. It's called cellular memory, and the stories are both baffling and incredibly consistent. Let's talk about Claire Sylvia. In 1988, she was a 47-year-old professional dancer whose body was failing her. She received a heart and double lung transplant from an 18-year-old boy from Maine who had died in a motorcycle accident. The surgery was a success, but almost immediately things started getting weird. Claire, a woman who had always eaten healthily, suddenly developed an intense, insatiable craving for beer, green peppers, and Kentucky Fried Chicken nuggets. She'd never liked any of them before. She also started having recurring dreams about a young, thin man named Tim L. She felt an overwhelming sense of connection to this dream person, as if she knew him. Driven by these bizarre new urges and dreams, she did some digging. She eventually found the family of her donor. His name was Timothy Lamarenda. And yes, he had loved green peppers, beer, and was known for constantly snacking on chicken nuggets. The puzzle pieces clicked into place in the most terrifying way imaginable. Her new cravings, her dreams. They seemed to be echoes of his life, somehow stored in the organs now inside her. So what's the science here? The mainstream explanation is, well, there isn't a good one. The dominant theory is that our brain is the sole keeper of memory and consciousness. But the cellular memory hypothesis suggests that memories, preferences, and even personality traits aren't just locked away in our neurons. They might be stored in the living cells of our organs, like tiny biological hard drives. Information in this theory is encoded in the very fabric of our bodies. Most scientists are still highly skeptical, often attributing these cases to coincidence, suggestion, or the side effects of immunosuppressant drugs, which can cause vivid dreams and changes in taste. And they have a point. It's nearly impossible to study this in a controlled lab setting. But with thousands of anecdotal reports from transplant recipients experiencing similar changes, suddenly developing new musical tastes, phobias, or even skills that align perfectly with their donors, you have to wonder. It forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. If your memories, your cravings, and your personality can be swapped out like a car part, then how much of you is actually you? In 1971, former Beatle George Harrison released the song My Sweet Lord, a massive chart-topping hit. The problem was, its melody was suspiciously similar to a 1963 song called He's So Fine by the Chiffons. The publisher of He's So Fine sued for copyright infringement, and the case went to court. Harrison was in a tough spot. He swore he didn't intentionally copy the song. He testified that he was just strumming chords. The melody came to him, and he ran with it. He wasn't lying, but he wasn't original either. The judge delivered a fascinating verdict. Harrison was guilty of copyright infringement, but it was subconscious. He hadn't stolen the song. His own brain had stolen it for him, repackaged it, and presented it as a brand new idea. This is a classic, high-profile case of a phenomenon called cryptomnesia. It literally translates to hidden memory, and it's one of the most intellectually terrifying ways your brain can betray you. This isn't forgetting, it's misremembering the origin of a memory. Your brain accesses the real memory, a song you heard on the radio, an idea you read in a book, a story a friend told you, but fails to tag it as something I learned from an outside source. Instead, it stamps a shiny new generated by me sticker on it and shoves it into your consciousness as a moment of pure inspiration. So why does this happen? Think of your brain like a massive, chaotic library where all the books have been thrown on the floor. When you have a new idea, you're essentially grabbing a book off the pile. Most of the time, you can see the cover and know who the author is. But with cryptomnesia, it's like you've grabbed a book whose cover has been torn off. The contents are all there, perfectly preserved, but your brain, in its infinite and lazy wisdom, just assumes it must have written it. It's a glitch in your source monitoring system. This system is what helps you distinguish between memories of things you actually did and memories of things you only thought about, heard, or saw. When that system flickers, even for a second, a memory can get misfiled in the "my brilliant ideas" cabinet instead of the "things I heard on TV" drawer. This happens to writers, artists, and musicians all the time. But it also happens in everyday life. It's the reason you retell a joke to the very person who told it to you yesterday. It's why you might passionately argue a point in a meeting, only for a coworker to gently remind you that they came up with that exact point last week. It's not a sign of malice or stupidity. It's a sign that your brain's filing clerk is asleep at the wheel. The truly unsettling part is that you can't feel it happening. The aha moment feels completely genuine. It's a ghost memory, a phantom idea, and you are utterly convinced it's your own. All right, everyone knows about déjà vu, that spooky feeling that you've already experienced the present moment. It's been memed to death. But let's talk about its much more sinister and less famous twin brother, jamais vu. French for never seen baron. Jamais vu is the unsettling sensation that a familiar situation, person, or word is suddenly completely new, alien, and unrecognizable. It's the polar opposite of déjà vu, and it's arguably way more disturbing. Imagine you're writing an email. You type out a simple, common word like door. You've written it thousands of times, but suddenly you stare at it and it just looks wrong. The letters DOOR seem like a bizarre, nonsensical collection of shapes. You start to question if it's even a real word. It feels foreign, like you're seeing it for the first time from a different dimension. Or imagine you walk into your own kitchen, a room you've been in every day for years, and for a fleeting moment, nothing is familiar. You don't recognize the layout, the appliances feel like props on a movie set, and you feel like an intruder in your own home. That sudden jarring disconnection from reality, that's jamais vu. So what's causing this reality-breaking glitch? Psychologists believe it's a temporary brain fart, specifically a brief breakdown in the connection between your conscious perception and your long-term memory. Normally, when you see something familiar, like your dog, your temporal lobe fires up, accesses the dog file, and gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling of recognition. With jamais vu, it's like that signal gets lost. Your eyes see the dog, but the message gets a 404 error on its way to the recognition center. Your brain is essentially looking at a known entity and treating it as unknown data. A 2006 study actually managed to induce this in a lab. Researchers had volunteers write the same word, like door, over and over again. Within about a minute, or after writing it about 30 times, around 70% of the participants reported symptoms of jamais vu, saying the word had lost its meaning and felt unreal. It's a phenomenon known as semantic satiation. You basically overload a specific neural pathway until it fatigues and temporarily shuts down. It's like yelling a word until it just becomes a meaningless sound. While a fleeting moment of jamais vu is a common and harmless brain hiccup, for some people with certain types of epilepsy or amnesia, this can be a chronic and terrifying state of being where the world constantly feels unreal and populated by strangers, even their own family. It's a reminder that the comfortable, stable reality you inhabit is being held together by a fragile network of neurological wires, and sometimes one of them just comes unplugged. What does your inner monologue sound like? You know, the little voice in your head that's narrating your life, debating whether you should get pizza, and reminding you that you forgot to take the trash out. For most of us, that voice feels like the very essence of me. It's the command center, the seat of the soul. But what if one day a new voice appeared? A thought that you were absolutely certain did not come from you. It's not hearing voices in the traditional sense. It's a fully formed thought, an idea or a memory showing up in your brain that feels like it was planted there by someone else. Before you start lining your hat with tinfoil, this isn't science fiction. It's a documented psychological phenomenon. In its most extreme form, it's a symptom of psychosis known as thought insertion, where patients report that an outside force, the CIA, aliens, their neighbor, is broadcasting thoughts directly into their mind. But a milder, far more common version of this can be triggered by something surprisingly simple: exhaustion. Have you ever been so tired, hovering in that weird space between being awake and asleep, that a completely random, nonsensical thought flashes through your mind? A phrase like, "the purple horse flies at midnight," or a vivid image of a place you've never been? This is called a hypnagogic hallucination. It's a waking dream where the rigid rules of your conscious mind collapse, and the chaotic, creative, and frankly bizarre content of your dreaming brain starts to leak through. During this state, your brain's self-monitoring system, the part that tags thoughts as mine, partially shuts down. The result is that these dream fragments pop into your awareness without the usual ownership tag. They feel alien because, in a way, some way, they are. They come from the part of your mind that doesn't operate on logic or a sense of self. It operates on pure, unadulterated weirdness. Historically, this phenomenon has been interpreted in all sorts of ways. Ancient cultures often saw these intrusive thoughts or images as divine messages, prophecies from the gods, or temptations from demons. It was a direct line to the supernatural world. Today, we understand it as a biological quirk, a momentary lapse in our brain's sophisticated sorting system. But it's a profound reminder that you are not a single unified entity. You are a coalition of different brain systems, and sometimes the quiet, weird ones in the back get a hold of the microphone for a second. It's the ultimate identity theft committed by your own subconscious. The call is coming from inside the house and inside your head. In the 1980s, a strange story began to circulate among emergency room doctors and social workers in the United States. It was about a specific group of people, Hmong refugees who had fled the brutal regime in Laos after the Vietnam War. Young, otherwise healthy Hmong men were dying in their sleep for no apparent reason. They would go to bed, cry out in the night, and then nothing. They were gone. Autopsies revealed no cause of death. Their hearts just stopped. The phenomenon was so specific and so terrifying, it was given a name: Sudden Unexplained Nocturnal Death Syndrome, or SUNS. As researchers like Shelley Adler began to investigate, they uncovered a chilling piece of cultural folklore. The Hmong people have a traditional belief in a spirit world that coexists with our own. One of the figures in this world is a terrifying creature called the Dab Sog, pronounced Da Cho, a jealous night spirit that sits on your chest while you sleep, trying to crush the life out of you. For generations, Hmong shamans performed rituals to protect people from the Dab Sog. But when the refugees came to America, they were cut off from their community elders and shamans. They were isolated, traumatized by war, and living in a foreign land. They believed they were defenseless. This is where the story gets truly mind-bending. The leading theory is that these men died from a shared, culturally ingrained nightmare. They weren't just having a bad dream. They were experiencing a full-blown psychosomatic event, a fatal version of the nocebo effect, the evil twin of the placebo effect. Their belief that the Dabsog would come for them was so powerful, so deeply embedded in their psyche, that it triggered a fatal cardiac arrhythmia. Their brains, convinced they were being attacked by a real monster, essentially sent a panic signal so extreme that it shut their bodies down for good. This is a horrifying, real-world example of how a memory, or in this case, a cultural belief that functions as a memory, can physically kill you. It wasn't a virus or a poison, but an idea, a story. It proves that the line between what you believe and what is physically real is frighteningly thin. The men who died weren't crazy. They were victims of a collective memory so powerful it could reach out of the world of dreams and stop a human heart. It makes you wonder what stories you've been told your whole life and what they might be quietly doing to your own biology. There's a collective amnesia that we are all suffering from right now, and it might be the most dangerous one on this list. It doesn't steal your past, it steals the world's. It's called shifting baseline syndrome, and it's the reason we fail to notice slow-moving catastrophes happening right under our noses. The concept was first described by fisheries scientist Daniel Pauly in 1995. He noticed something odd. Each generation of scientists was measuring the health of the ocean based on how it looked at the start of their own careers. The problem is the ocean they saw was already a depleted, damaged version of what the previous generation saw. Here's the story that makes it click. In the 1950s, a fisherman in Florida might have taken a photo of his prize catch, a massive 200-pound Goliath grouper. To him, that was a trophy, but still a somewhat normal big fish. His son, fishing in the 1980s, might proudly take a photo of his own prize catch, an 80-pound grouper. To him, that fish is a monster, the biggest he's ever seen. And today, that man's grandson might catch a 30-pounder and post it all over Instagram, calling it the catch of a lifetime. Each generation accepts their own degraded, depleted reality as the new normal. The memory of the truly massive fish, the teeming reefs, the crystal clear water, it doesn't get passed down. It evaporates. The The baseline for what a healthy ocean looks like shifts downward with every new generation until we're celebrating a shadow of what we once had. This isn't just about fish. It's about everything. It's why we don't feel the same sense of alarm about the decline in insect populations. We don't remember a time when long car trips meant cleaning your windshield every hour. It's why we accept light-polluted skies as normal, because the memory of a truly dark, star-filled night is gone for most people. Our brains are built for noticing sudden change. The tiger jumping from the bushes, the lightning strike. We are fundamentally bad at perceiving slow, creeping change over decades. Our own memory system works against us, constantly resetting our expectations to match the new, slightly worse reality. So while we worry about losing our personal memories, this syndrome shows how we can lose a collective environmental memory without even knowing it's gone. It's a form of societal gaslighting, perpetrated by our own limited perception of time. We're living in a ghost of a world, and we've forgotten what the original even looked like. Have you ever had one of those days where you stub your toe and suddenly you're not just mad about your toe, you're mad about that stupid thing you said in a meeting last week, that embarrassing moment in high school, and that time you tripped in front of your crush in 2008? It feels like one small negative event unlocks a secret vault containing every failure you've ever had. This isn't you being overly dramatic. This is your brain's retrieval system working exactly as designed. It's a feature, not a bug, and it's called mood-congruent memory recall. The concept is deceptively simple. Your current emotional state acts as a filter for your memories. When you're happy, you have preferential access to other happy memories. You remember sunny days, successful projects, and good jokes. Your brain essentially says, we are in a happy state, deploying the happy files. This creates a positive feedback loop, keeping you in that cheerful headspace. But the trapdoor swings both ways. When you're feeling sad or anxious, your brain dutifully opens the sadness and anxiety drawers. It starts serving up memories of other times you felt just as bad, failures, heartbreaks, losses. It's a vicious cycle. Feeling bad makes you remember bad things, which in turn makes you feel even worse. Think of it like a librarian who can only fetch books from the horror section when it's raining outside. It doesn't matter if you ask for a comedy. If it's gloomy out, you're getting Stephen King. Your brain's retrieval cues are tied to your emotional state. This is why just thinking positive is so difficult when you're in a funk. You are biologically firewalled from your own happy memories. This is also a core mechanism in clinical depression. It's not just about feeling sad in the present. It's that the condition forces a person to re-experience and ruminate on every negative memory they have, making the past feel like an inescapable chain of suffering. The takeaway here is that your memory isn't an objective record of your past. It's a story you tell yourself, and the genre of that story is dictated by your mood today. You aren't remembering your life. You're remembering the version of your life that matches your current feelings. It's a sober-up call, a reminder that when you're feeling down and your brain starts playing a highlight reel of your worst moments, that isn't the truth. It's just your emotional librarian being annoyingly good at its job. In 1933, in the small French town of Le Mans, a gruesome discovery was made. Two sisters, Christine and Leah Papin, who worked as live-in maids for a lawyer and his family, had done something unspeakable. They had murdered their employer's wife and daughter in a fit of extreme violence. When the police arrived, they found the sisters in bed together in their attic room, perfectly calm, having confessed their crime to each other. But the strangest part of the case wasn't just the brutality, it was the psychology. The sisters didn't have a rational motive like robbery or revenge. Instead, they seemed to be living in their own shared, private, paranoid world. This case became the poster child for a rare and fascinating psychiatric condition, folie à deux, or a madness for two. It's a phenomenon where a delusion is transmitted from one individual to another. It starts with a primary individual, someone who spontaneously develops a psychotic belief that they are being spied on, that they are a historical figure, that they are in grave danger. This person is usually dominant and assertive. They then, through close association, impose this belief system onto a second, more passive and suggestible individual. Over time, living in isolation, the second person comes to accept the delusion as reality. They aren't just pretending to believe it to appease the first person. They fully internalize it. Their realities merge. The why is a perfect storm of social isolation and psychological influence. The Pin sisters, for example, lived an incredibly cloistered life. spending almost all of their time together in the attic with little contact with the outside world. This isolation acts like an incubator. With no outside perspectives to challenge the bizarre beliefs, the delusion becomes the only reality they have. The dominant person's reality becomes a powerful signal, and the submissive person's brain, lacking any other conflicting signals, eventually just tunes into it. It's like two out-of-sync clocks, locked in a soundproof room, eventually starting to tick in perfect, albeit wrong, time with each other. Folia do demonstrate that even something as profound as your perception of reality can be contagious. It's not a virus that spreads, but a belief. The memory of what is real and what is imagined can be overwritten by someone else's conviction. It's the ultimate form of peer pressure, showing that if you're isolated enough and the influence is strong enough, another person's nightmare can literally become your own. So let's go back to the original nightmare scenario. You wake up, you look in the mirror, and you don't recognize the face staring back. But it's worse than that. You have all the memories associated with that face. You remember its childhood, its first kiss, its job, but none of it feels like yours. There's a total emotional disconnection. You are a ghost piloting a stranger's body, haunted by their past. This isn't just a hypothetical. It's a terrifyingly real neurological condition, a variation of a delusion known as Capgras syndrome. In its classic form, Capgras makes you believe a loved one, your spouse, your child, has been replaced by an identical imposter. But in its most self-tormenting form, the imposter is you. Neurologists sometimes call this mirrored self-misidentification. It's believed to be caused by a catastrophic breakdown in communication between the part of your brain that processes visual information, the fusiform gyrus, which recognizes faces, and the part that attaches emotional significance to that information, the limbic system, particularly the amygdala. The process is supposed to be seamless. You see your face and your brain instantly provides that warm, subjective feeling of, that's me. But for someone with this condition, that connection is severed. Their brain successfully identifies the face. Yes, objectively, that face matches the one in my memories. But the emotional confirmation signal never arrives. The feeling of familiarity is gone. Imagine the psychological horror. You look at your hands and they feel like props. You hear your own name and it sounds like it belongs to someone else. The memories are all there, like data on a hard drive, but you have no emotional access to them. It would be like watching a movie of someone else's life, except that movie is playing from inside your own skull. Sufferers might try to rationalize this terrifying disconnect in bizarre ways, believing their real self has been swapped out, or that they are living in a simulation, or that this body is just a temporary vessel. This condition forces us to confront the fact that our identity isn't just one thing, it's two. There's the factual memory, the what, where, and when of our lives, which neuroscientists call semantic memory. And then there's the emotional, autobiographical memory, the feeling of being you, which is called episodic memory. Mirrored self-misidentification is what happens when the first one remains intact, but the second one is completely erased. It reveals that our sense of self is a fragile illusion, a duet between data and feeling. And if one of them goes silent, you become an imposter in your own life. What is your most cherished memory? That perfect summer day? Your graduation? The first time you met someone you love? Hold that memory in your mind. Picture the details. Feel the emotions. Now, what if I told you that the very act of you remembering it right now might be corrupting it forever? What if every time you access a memory, you don't just replay it, you rewrite it? This isn't a philosophical riddle. It's the most revolutionary and deeply unsettling discovery about human memory in the last 50 years. It's called memory reconsolidation. For over a century, the dominant model of memory was simple. You have an experience, your brain encodes it, and it gets stored in a metaphorical filing cabinet. When you remember it, you pull the file out, look at it, and put it back, safe and unchanged. This is completely, utterly wrong. The work of neuroscientists like Karim Nader in the early 2000s turned this model on its head. He proved that when you recall a long-term memory, it doesn't just get reread, it becomes active, malleable, and unstable. It's like pulling a Word document out of the filing cabinet, and for a short window of time, the text becomes editable again before you hit save. During this fragile state, the memory can be altered. New information, your current emotional state, or even stray thoughts can get accidentally mixed in before the memory is reconsolidated or resaved back into long-term storage. Let me repeat that. Every time you remember something, you are performing a save-as of a memory that is slightly different from the original. Your favorite memory isn't a pristine video recording. It's more like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. The general picture is still there, but the details have become fuzzy, the colors have bled, and little smudges have appeared that weren't there before. This is why our stories change over time. It's why eyewitness testimony is so notoriously unreliable. The witness isn't necessarily lying. Their memory of the event has been unconsciously edited every single time they've told the story to police, to lawyers, or to their family. This is the ultimate answer to the question of waking up with a stranger's memories, because in a very real sense, you already have. The you who experienced your most important life events doesn't exist anymore. All you have is the edited, resaved, and slightly fictionalized story told by the person you are today. Your past is not a fixed country you can revisit. It is a fluid narrative that you are actively co-authoring in the present. You are the stranger. You are living with the memories of a person who was almost, but not quite you. So there you have it, more proof that your brain is a beautiful, sophisticated, and pathologically dishonest piece of equipment that is actively trying to trick you. If you want to find out what other shenanigans it's up to, make sure you're subscribed for the next video.